The 2000s were packed with supernatural TV shows that people still talk about years later. But tucked between those bigger names is a whole world of urban fantasy shows that came and went much more quietly. Some had vampire detectives, some had cursed artifacts, fallen angels, grim reapers, and werewolf towns. And the strange thing is, a lot of them feel like they were right on the edge of becoming cult favorites. Yet, for one reason or another, they slipped through the cracks. So today, let's look back at 2000s urban fantasy shows you probably forgot existed. The Others. Before supernatural ensemble dramas became a regular part of TV's comfort zone, The Others gathered a group of people who could see, hear, or sense things most people couldn't. At the center was Marion Kitt, a young woman trying to understand her psychic abilities while being pulled into a support group of fellow sensitives. But this was not a cozy little circle of gifted misfits trading ghost stories over coffee. The show leaned into eerie cases, moral uncertainty, and the unsettling possibility that contact with the dead might come with consequences. It had that Y2K network drama mood, and a concept that seemed to arrive just a few years too early. Witchblade. Witchblade felt like a gritty New York cop drama that collided with ancient supernatural mythology. The story followed Detective Sarah Pizzini, whose life changed after she encountered the Witchblade, a powerful artifact that had bonded with chosen women throughout history. On one level, Sarah investigated murders and corruption. On another, she was being pulled into a much older world of visions, destiny, and secret forces moving around her. The appeal came from that clash between street-level crime and mystical inheritance. It had leather jackets, secret agendas, and the kind of early 2000s atmosphere where every alley seemed to be hiding either a clue or a prophecy. Wolf Lake. Wolf Lake took the werewolf myth and turned it into a small-town conspiracy drama. The story began when Seattle cop John Kanan's fiancée disappeared, sending him to the isolated community of Wolf Lake, where the locals were clearly protecting something stranger than ordinary secrets. Rather than treating werewolves as simple monsters, the show imagined them as a hidden society with family lines, social rules, and old grudges. There was romance, suspicion, class tension, and a constant sense that outsiders were being watched from the moment they arrived. It sat somewhere between paranormal mystery, gothic soap, and the supernatural teen dramas that would become much bigger later in the decade. Dead Like Me. Dead Like Me opened with one of the most bizarre deaths in 2000s TV. Georgia Lass was killed by a toilet seat falling from a space station. But instead of moving on, George became a grim reaper, collecting souls before people died while lingering near the life she left behind. The show mixed morbid humor with real emotional weight, using its fantasy setup to explore grief, family, and unfinished business. Death was not presented as a grand cosmic adventure. It was paperwork, rules, awkward coworkers, and a boss who rarely explained enough. That strange combination made the show dark, funny, tender, and unlike anything else from the era. The Collector. The Collector built its supernatural drama around bargains with the devil, but its hook was more tragic than flashy. Morgan Pym had once traded his soul for love, then spent centuries working as a collector, tracking people whose 10-year deals were about to expire. The twist was that Morgan tried to save them before hell claimed what it was owed. That gave each episode a ticking clock, but also a moral question. What happened when someone got exactly what they asked for and still had to pay the price? The show dealt in temptation, regret, desperation, and second chances. It is a deeply under-discussed Canadian entry in the 2000s supernatural wave. Point Pleasant. Point Pleasant arrived with the glossy surface of a teen soap and the soul of an apocalyptic thriller. Its story revolved around Christina Nixon, a mysterious young woman who washed up in a New Jersey beach town and slowly disturbed everyone around her. At first, the show seemed full of romance, family secrets, and coastal melodrama. Then Christina's darker connection to evil pushed the whole thing into more dangerous territory. The fun came from the contrast. The end of the world did not begin with fire falling from the sky. It began with attraction, manipulation, and a pretty beach town where almost everyone already had something to hide. Night Stalker. Night Stalker revived Kolchak for a darker, more paranoid era. Stuart Townsend played Carl Kolchak, a journalist investigating bizarre deaths while carrying the trauma of his wife's murder. The show used strange cases, unexplained phenomena, and crime scene horror to build a larger sense of conspiracy. Every investigation hinted at something beyond the obvious, and every answer seemed to uncover another layer of darkness. Compared with the 1970s original, this version was very much shaped by the post-X-Files television landscape. It turned urban fantasy into a world of police tape and truths that powerful people wanted buried. Fallen mixed angel mythology and teenage self-discovery into a very mid-2000s fantasy miniseries. The story followed Aaron Corbett, who on his 18th birthday discovered that he was not entirely human. As Aaron learned about fallen angels and his own place in a much larger conflict, the show transformed adolescence into a supernatural awakening. Its fantasy elements were rooted in everyday spaces, ordinary corners where divine politics suddenly became personal. The result had that YA before the YA TV boom quality, complete with chosen one anxiety, brooding conversations, and the sense that growing up was difficult enough before ancient celestial drama got involved. The Dresden Files. The Dresden Files might be the most textbook urban fantasy pick here, because it gave viewers Harry Dresden, wizard, private investigator, and professional trouble magnate in modern Chicago. Based on Jim Butcher's novels, the show sent Harry cases involving ghosts, vampires, dark magic, and creatures that most people preferred not to acknowledge. Its charm came from the detective structure wrapped around a magical world. Harry had clients, debts, and an office, but he also had a skull-shaped advisor and the exhausting job of handling supernatural chaos whenever reality started breaking its own rules. It was pulpy, paranormal, and extremely tied to its 2007 moment. Blood Ties. Blood Ties understood exactly why supernatural detective stories worked in the 2000s. Vicki Nelson, a former Toronto police detective, became a private investigator after her eyesight began to fail, only for her new cases to drag her into the paranormal underworld. Her unlikely ally was Henry Fitzroy, a centuries-old vampire and the illegitimate son of Henry VIII. Then there was Mike Salucci, Vicky's ex-partner, whose presence added skepticism and unresolved romantic history. The show blended occult mysteries, vampire attraction, and police drama instincts without losing sight of its heroine. Vicky was stubborn, capable, and rarely impressed by the supernatural chaos forming around her, which made the whole thing more entertaining. Reaper turned damnation into a workplace comedy with monsters. Sam Oliver believed he was just an underachieving retail employee with no real direction, until he discovered that his parents had sold his soul to the devil before he was born. From there, Sam was forced to capture escaped souls from hell using bizarre vessels, all while managing a job, friends, crushes, and the world's most irritating supernatural boss. The show stood out because it treated the paranormal as another awful adult obligation. Hell was scary, but so was customer service. It was funny, strange, and surprisingly sincere. Moonlight. Finally, we have Moonlight, a show that appeared right before vampires fully dominated late 2000s pulp culture, which made it a fascinating almost hit. The show followed Mick St. John, a Los Angeles private investigator who also happened to be a vampire. He used his abilities to solve cases and protect the living, even as he wrestled with immortality, loneliness, and the person he used to be. And his connection with journalist Beth Turner added a noir-flavored romance element to the show. Compared with the vampire dramas that followed, Moonlight had a more melancholic style. It was full of nighttime streets, old wounds, and one undead detective trying to hold on to whatever humanity he had left. And that brings us to the end of our trip through the shadowy side streets of 2000s urban fantasy TV. Now we want to hear from you. Which of these shows do you remember watching? And which forgotten urban fantasy series would you add to this lineup? Let us know in the comments. Hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and check out tvshowpilot.com for more articles on your favorite shows.